might throw it up on my YouTube. I'm sure you know, I'm sure it's getting on someone's radar somewhere at this point. But like I said, it is what it is. I'm not gonna sweat whatever they're up to and what they're gonna do. I'll just continue to post truth and speak truth, and it'll be what it'll be.
Yes, sir. All right, we are live, guys. My name is Dr. Sharnael Wolverton Sehan. We are a little bit over, but I'm just glad we made it, to be honest, because this is like our fifth or sixth attempt to get this going. Mostly my problem because I've had some health stuff going on unexpected, and just trying to like work out my own stuff. But hopefully you guys can share, whoever's out there. Please do your due diligence and share this away and let people know, because this is going to be amazing. You guys are going to absolutely freaking love this guy that I have on here today. He has on his banner, it's Paul Unslaved, which I think is super cool. But this is Paul-Pablo. Welcome to the show.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing good. So, guys, if you are just now joining us, or if you've never been on this show, my name is Dr. Sharnael Wolverton Sehan. This is Swiftfire True TV, where we actually tell the truth and talk about good news and also get people informed. And
That's
I
a fascinating concept.
right.
That is a fascinating. You're telling me. I want to just get this straight. You don't lie. You tell the truth. You give good news, and you inform people. That's a fascinating concept. Tell me more about
Isn't that insane?
that.
It's like night. Well, I was gonna say it's like the 50s, but actually it's way before that. Way before Mockingbird came, people used to have a little bit of concept of freedom. And what I like about you and your work, and been kind of stalking you literally, is that you totally get the concept of sovereignty. You get the concept of a call to action. You're not playing victim. You're not like bummed out and sitting around and just whatever and just taking it. And
QAnon.
what's
Showing up
that?
QAnon any day. QAnon is gonna do it all for us. They're gonna drain the swamp. They're gonna
The
do it all
whole
for
world.
us, and I'm
Everybody.
waiting on
Yeah, the
it.
entire world. And Jesus is going to come back, and
Yeah.
Santa Claus and Easter and this the Easter bunny. And I love Jesus. Jesus is freaking amazing. And also, we're sent here and we're on the planet for some kind of reason, to take dominion and to be sovereign and to learn how to be. And so, give you a little background, guys, on how I found Paul-Pablo. Is someone I wish I knew. It might be you, Leslie, but somebody, some amazing person, sent me a clip and was like, "Hey, check this out. Watch this." Like, I get a million of these a day, and I mostly delete because it's way too much. But I did watch it, and it was Mr. Paul-Pablo getting pulled over by the cops because he didn't. I think he didn't have registration or a license or something. Well,
No
I think
plates, no license, no registration, no insurance.
yes. So I was like, okay, what is this about? Because normally, people will send me something that's sort of relevant to what's going on with me, like not just some random guy getting pulled over. But it was fascinating, absolutely. And I encourage every one of you to go to his YouTube channel and watch every single one of his videos, like I have, and keep up with them, because it's amazing how how you, Paul, I mean, you just like explained your situation, you explained your sovereignty, common law. The cops kind of gave you a little bit of whatever, but you had an answer for every single thing that came to you. And in the end, you actually were schooling these dudes who didn't really seem to know the law as police officers, which, I'm not anti police officers. I'm talking about just people in general who don't seem to actually know the law. And you just broke it down real good, all the way to the point where the guy you had offered to take him to coffee, or like, you guys want to go like hang out, and I can talk to you more, or whatever you want. And the guy was like, can I get your email? Do you teach on this? Like, maybe we could talk later. So tell me a little bit about, how long have you been doing this? Give us a little.
Well, the moving the property without a license, registration, insurance, and plates is pretty recent. But as far as this understanding and this lifestyle, it's sort of been a lifelong journey that just recently, right, with sort of how I look at it, the way the spirit is moving right now is that COVID is the maker or the breaker, right? The quote COVID in quotes. Oh wait, I wasn't supposed to right away. You told me one thing I wasn't supposed to do and I did it. Okay. Um, the virus. Are we allowed to no, we're not allowed to do anything.
I'll just put it on BitChute. We'll put it on
All
BitChute.
right. All right. So yeah, this whole period of time that we're going through, right? The resistance that we're meeting, the challenges, the questions, the confusion, the fear, the suffering, the death. It is all make or breaker at this point, right? So for me, I'm probably better in my life than I've ever been. I'm more powerful. I'm more connected and communing with what I believe to be the most high, what men and women call God or just the universal consciousness, right? So while I know other people are on the other end, and I believe there's again cause and effect and a reason for all this, right? Because I was in a hole. I was full of chaos and fear and self-destruction and not holding myself accountable. So now we've flipped positions, right? Because again, it's not about me, it's about the walk in the understanding, right? And to touch on what you said about Christ, this is not about downing the idea of Christ at all. Christ was just another great teacher along the way about consciousness, right? And even he said, greater things than I, you shall all do. We are all sons and daughters of the Most High. The idea is we don't want to ever get into worshiping anything or giving our power away to something, expecting it to solve the problems that we have individually and collectively created, right? So just to make that distinction. So we can understand true spirituality is simply knowing the self, therefore knowing the universe, therefore communing with self and the universe together and co-creating a kingdom of heaven, right, in quotes, rather than a hell on earth, which we are now seeing manifest due to the large scale ignorance and arrogance and egotism.
So I've seen you in court. I've seen you in the courtrooms. I've seen you try to go get paperwork. You know, it seems like almost everywhere you go, you're schooling people. Like, do you feel like you have to explain? I mean, are you running into a lot of people? I mean, I've just seen some of your videos where that happens, but do you ever like run into people who actually know what you're saying and don't give you any trouble at all?
I mean, it's sort of I get pretty good results majority of the time, but like anything else, the more of a high stress, tense situation that's full of people who are fearful and confused, the more there is the possibility for sort of undesirable things to happen. But, the majority of the time, things work out the way they're supposed to, one way or the other, right? Because maybe I'm supposed to have something happen so I can learn how to do it a little bit better the next time, right? But ultimately, yeah, ultimately it's all good. It's either learning or it's sort of learning and growing or it's standing in that power and that truth. Either way, it works for me, right? So when something happens to me because I'm standing in my power and in the truth, I can't fault that because it's what has to be done.
Dude, that is freaking amazing. I needed to hear that right now. Yeah, so just, I hope you guys got that. So he's saying even when there's like pushback, for him to build his, like, to exercise his muscles and to be able to, like, maybe quote learn to do it better next time. I mean, that's super deep. And I actually was talking to someone about this a little bit ago, about like the butterfly in the cocoon, or like a baby chick in an egg, right? And it's like they're sitting there and someone comes along and like hits the egg and like helps him get out. He's not going to have the strength to do all the stuff he's got to do later on. Same thing with the butterfly. You just like rip open the cocoon and it takes away the experience of that butterfly or that chick to be able to have the strength to do whatever is he's called upon or she's called upon in the next thing. So you did it. You said that so beautifully. Tell
The
me.
darkness, right, gives way to new light. And that's sort of the paradox in this. It's not really it sounds cliche, but it's absolutely true. They make movies about this, the dark night of the soul, right? And just to sort of touch on it, the allegory metaphors that they give us in Hollywood, they tell us about these states of consciousness where Bane comes in and he tells the city, I am necessary evil. Right. So they're explaining to you that what you perceive as bad and suffering and evil is absolutely necessary in order to spur and cause as a catalyst an awakening for more light. Right. So there is a form and a function even for the devil, so to speak. because it calls people to action. It calls people to wake up more. It calls people to say, I'm done choosing my own suffering, because the devil never did anything. The devil was there with us when we chose our own evil and our own suffering individually and collectively, right? So the onus and the blame and the power is on us on the negative end, and then back towards the positive end. Since we created this, we now know we can create this. We don't have to do that anymore.
Yeah, I had a healing crisis a couple years ago, and that's kind of my perspective even on that. Like with healing, it was like, you know what? The good news is I got myself here and I can get myself out. You know, it took a little time to get myself to that position of cause and effect, but the good news is it's like, okay, I can create my way out of here just as well as I got myself here. And now we're all doing it kind of on this mass scale of if each of us do our own part, you know, and there is a lot of polarization. But you are so well informed. Like, where do you study? Where you, like, how do you get this information? Where can other people get the information? Because you just like you have like you got it down, and you have like a major genius mind to just like memorize all this stuff that you say, and to these people just like off the cuff, like you should have totally been a lawyer.
Sure. I mean, it's not, it's again, there is an element, I guess, right? There's memory being used, but really what it is it's in conjunction and in function with the vision and the heart, right? Because I have to almost be able to see what I'm saying as I say it and speak it from the heart. So I'm almost like painting a picture using the words, right? So it's not really about a memorization or a script or a rap, although a lot of times when I speak on these subjects, I will touch on the same sort of um, understandings or stories or parallels, but it's really just painting a picture, right? I'm speaking from a place of seeing the cause and effect and living the knowledge, which is wisdom, right? And applying it and seeing how, okay, there is power here. So, yeah, it's more of a lifestyle, right? Rather than just, that's why I would be a good lawyer, because the best act is no act. The best actor doesn't memorize a script and then try to figure out how to cry just the right way. He throws himself into the role, he becomes the role, therefore he eclipses all other actors. So the really good lawyer is not a lawyer at all. He is one who upholds the law, and the law is written in our mind and heart. So while a attorney, whoever might be acting as a prosecutor or an attorney, I'm not acting, I'm upholding the law, therefore I'm a better lawyer than they are.
Oh my God, that's amazing. Yeah, and you know when you do it, you can feel the vibration of love as you're talking. You're not being confrontational. You're not being like an asshole. You're actually just
Not right now.
yeah.
It could get there.
Well, what I have seen is like you're it's like the energy or the undercurrent is I want to help you see this. It's like you're actually talking to people, even like the cops or the people at the courthouse or what have you. It doesn't come across, at least to me, confrontational, as I've seen some people just get like really mad and frustrated and upset, where you're just like trying to have a conversation and like, hey, did you know that blah blah blah, and yeah, I don't know how
It's
you.
true care, right? It's what they call the sacred feminine principle. Heart consciousness is true care. I truly care about myself and others and the fate of humanity, and I understand that it's all one thing. I cannot really care about myself if I don't care about my fellow man and woman, and therefore the truth that encompasses all of our livelihood. So that true care has to be there in order for one to act in right action, right? So yeah, it's cultivated too. I mean, a big part of our society is we're trained not to care. You get into discussions with people when it gets too hot, they'll just say, "Well, I don't care. I don't care." You know, it's this go-to training of we've been taught not to care in order to function in society where we have fears or confrontations that we can't really hold ourselves responsible to, or accountable for. Right. So it's just about getting to know the self and the body and the mind and how it reacts here and there, and then sort of bringing it back to center and speaking from, I think, what we can all perceive to be eternal truth, right from wrong, if again you've done that work to remove your ego, because we all want things to be true and we don't want things to be true, and that's where I believe messes all of us up in a lot of areas of our lives. We want this to be true, we don't want this to be true. However, what is we're not able to sit with and to fully take in and fully respond to.
So you think that it's ego? You think the bottom line is it's ego?
Sure, I think it's a big aspect to it. You know, the child that's never grown up, the child that's never been forced to be disciplined or never been self-disciplined, right? Because self-discipline is a big part of how one leads a a life that leads to desirable outcome for self and others. Is has to be self-discipline and ego checking, right? And the majority of people are not walking around every day saying, well, how is myself getting in the way? It's quite the opposite. It's how can I serve myself to the maximum? I mean, at least in the corporate value system, that's no secret. This is old cliche. You know, the way you get ahead in corporate value system is I'm going to fuck the other guy before he fucks me. And I'm going to figure out how to do it quicker, faster, and better, and with more eloquence and with less liability. I'm going to make you believe he did it to himself.
And make money doing it.
Absolutely. Well, that's how we profit and succeed. That's how the strong survive, right? Only the strong survive. But again, the Tao says thousands of years before Christ, we mistake the true for the false and the false for the true. True strength is vulnerability at times, right? True strength is weakness at times, is what I'm trying to say. And then the false strength, the projection of strength, is real weakness. So we mistake the true for the false and the false for the true, right? There are times where just because you can not care for your fellow man and woman does not mean you should. You know, it's sort of a reflection of who and what you are, who you've become, right? The measure of man and woman is when their back is against the wall or when they're given power. So we see that right now. Give everyone the power to COVID police and they will police each other into slavery, you know?
So where do you put like forgiveness, unforgiveness, bitterness, anger? You know, because there's a lot of frustration at this moment. And, you know, people are, you know, blaming, divided, you know, families are divided. People are just, you know, angry. So what do you say about like that on an internal of dealing
Compassion. Compassion, just like the scripture says, they know not what they do. If they knew better, they would do better. Or if they were able to, they may know better, they're not able to do better because they're weak, they're undisciplined, they don't have what it takes. So we lead them by leading ourselves, right? And by showing and embodying these qualities that we expect them to embody. So we have compassion for them like children who may light the house on fire, burn themselves and all of us inside, but didn't know what they were doing when they were playing with the matches, right? So we continue to have that fortitude and explanation to them day in and day out. Listen, you don't play with the matches because if you do, you're going to burn the house down and you're going to kill mommy and daddy and all of us in there. You don't speak with that sort of condescending tone, but you get where I'm coming from, that in consciousness, age is not a barometer of development and maturity. I could be talking to a 50 or 60-year-old, they could be on a level of a 12-year-old, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, or otherwise, right? So we have to, again, like it says in the scripture, milk for the babes, meat for strong men. So depending on who's in front of us and the way they're conducting themselves, we meet it different ways. But then we also keep in mind that it's the same one self that we struggle with, right? I want certain things to be true, and I don't want other things to be true. And if I let myself, I will create a reality where these things are true and these things aren't true. So I have to watch myself and hold myself accountable, and I do the same thing to others. So again, the relationship we have with self extends out to others, and then we show that to these people and in our actions, in our day-to-day way that we conduct ourselves, right? I'm holding myself to this. I expect the same from you. If you don't, then that must mean you lack self-respect. So I have compassion for you because if you knew better, you'd do better. So I'm going to show you.
Well, I can tell you, like for my own wake up, like several years ago, it came in stages of like when I found out, well, this thing was wrong, and then that thing was wrong, and this thing that I was taught wasn't the right thing, and I kept getting all like layered. Thank God I didn't get it all in like one session. I think I would probably exploded, but you know, I just got these like pieces of this is actually the truth, not that, and then this is actually the truth, not that, and then there were some things I'm like, oh my God, please. Can this just be right? Please don't let me just completely lose my shit because like this, can we not touch this area or whatever? So I get the whole like wanting to be right or, you know, but then there's also that point where I was like, you know, I don't care if you tell me that like Santa Claus is my father or the Cookie Monster is my dad or something. You know, it's like, I just wanted the truth no matter what it was. It was like, just give me what the truth is. And that's really what started my journey of like okay, I'm doing some digging, I'm looking around, and and then also with this last year of all these things, it's like, are you kidding me? Like, being in my job and seeing what people were asked to do in my position, with the tests and everything else, it was like, oh my God, all the lying, all the, it is a bit aggravating. But you going back to the question that I was saying earlier, a lot about, like, I don't want to say law, I guess more common law. Like, where can people, just the average Joe, go study what you've been studying to actually be equipped to be able to respond the way you do? I know you have a Zoom coming up, like you teach this, or but where did you get this information?
Sure. So I always bring up Carl Lentz, Karlentz. Um, he talks a lot about the common law. He's got some videos on YouTube. Mark Passio is another example of somebody. Again, this is sort of a lifelong journey. I mean, it goes back to me reading excerpts from Plato. It goes to reading excerpts from scriptures, and sort of, like I said, Tao Te Ching, just certain sort of philosophical understandings and principles to where you start to get a center and a handle on who, the age old questions. Who are we? Where do we come from? Where are we going? What makes a man and woman, who and what they are at the essential level, and then what are all the sort of manifestations, the illusion, and again, it spans a bunch of different subjects. So it's for me kind of like a lifestyle again. But when we zoom in on the common law, yeah, really, Carl Lentz is my biggest probably influence. Mark Passio when it comes to universal law. But again, these things are more to help us remember or to tighten up our language game or our way of perceiving. But the reality of it is the spirit is where all this is at. You have to first come to certain basic understandings and principles that authority is illegitimate outside of self government, self control, that all forms of outward government are an attempt to control the self that cannot be controlled or will not be controlled. There's this, again, if I go down certain principles, you'd have to come to that, and then you'd have to move forward into, once your thoughts and emotions are aligned, it moves into action. But I've listened to a lot of people. Some people, Alex Jones, I listened to at one point, as far as just an interesting perspective that differed from the mainstream, right? And so for me, that was a peek into, and again, not that Alex Jones has been right about everything by any means, but an example for me, and now I'm sort of like ranting, but an example for me, I remember was 9/11. When 9/11 happened, I had questions from top to bottom. As time went on, I've had even more questions. And I think it's fascinating to me. And then it sort of bleeds into a bunch of other events and now COVID. So for
Mhm.
me, the best teacher and influence to me has been life experience and watching the universe speak to me. And then, like I said, I've had certain influences along the way. But I
Yeah.
guess, yeah, I guess I went off on what you asked because you really you kind of want to focus on the common law, huh?
No, no, no. I mean, I think that's great, and just pointing people some different directions of, like, who inspires you, who's helped you get where you are. But ultimately, we can look externally all day long, but, like, going back to what you keep saying, it's like that inward voice of, like, knowing us. And you mentioned knowing who we are in general. I have a friend named Bobby Connor, and I guess like 2 decades ago, he had this dream, and basically this, like, angel, I guess, had come to him and said that there's two big questions going on right now. And one question is, like, the devil, I guess, the dark side, saying, who do you think you are? And then the other question is the light, saying, who do you think you are? It's the exact same question. It's just about how it's asked and where it's coming from. And
Sure.
for us to remember, I mean, I have a book called Remembering the Frequency of Love. And it's like that word remember is huge for me, because it's about remembering, like, who I am in divinity, but also, like, my cells, and then us as a collective to remember, to reunite, to come together, to be as one, in God and as a collective, and to be able to stand in that strength and do whatever's necessary in this season and time. So I guess I'm renting now too, but I mean, you aren't
But
really
see,
in.
that's why the devil is our best teacher, because it might be easy, might not, to get in a room with someone who says, "Who do you think you are?" in a loving way. Tell me, and might be able to, but when the person gets you in there with guns and everything and surrounds you
You
and
find out
reduces
who
you
you are.
down, we're going to find out who you are, right? And you're going to find out. So, really, the devil and the whole thing that we call evil is our best teacher and shower of true self. Because if you can't do it under pressure and with everything, then that means you don't really believe it. Because if you really know it and you really believe it, you don't need anything else. You are the thing and you are connected to the thing. So, that's it, you know?
That's true. It's like we don't know what we don't know until we're in this situation. And we have been in a pretty crazy situation all year. And what I've kept saying is, and I've been saying to other people, is like, okay, when they first started this, like, oh, it's going to be 2 weeks kind of deal. It's like, I think kind of people were like, oh, yeah, 2 weeks off and they're going to be at home and like, get some shit done and, whatever, whatever. And just kind of didn't really bucket too much. But then it became 4 weeks, and then it was 6 weeks, and then it was just like,
But see,
why?
if you knew history, I don't mean to cut you off, but if you know history, you don't even let them get the foot in the door because you understand number one, Agenda 21, and now we're really, you better throw this on bitch. You better throw this in a crack somewhere where no one can get to it, because you start bringing up Agenda 21, Russia 2045, all these little videos and plans that have been out forever, them explaining the world that they're going to bring us into. It's all part and parcel of that, someone else's vision, and that's fine. Because if you all, everybody out there, I'm pointing right at you, if you all won't have a vision and live it and enact it, guess what? You're going to be part of someone else's. And you all wanted that. You all couldn't wait to give your power and the future of the world away from big corporations and people outside of yourselves and your community. So now, who do you have to blame? That's why I don't have much sympathy. All I could tell you is if you could start seeing right from wrong, just start doing right and we can change it. There's no point in even sitting here and saying who's to blame. While I do know who's to blame, go look in the mirror, like I said. So we're caught up in someone else's vision right now because we're blind, visionless, purposeless. They have vision and purpose. So when we get vision and purpose and act that out, we will create, again, the change. We will be the change that we want to see, and we will create the world that we want to live in. And it's just that simple, cause and effect, right? But it has to be grounded in oneness principles, eternal truths that are the same no matter where on this world that I go. I could go to Africa and say, who has a right to rule you, sir? Do you own your body? Who here has a right? If they can't tell me that they own their body and their body's their property and they have a right to do with it as they please until they cause loss, injury, and harm to their fellow man, they don't understand, right? And they need to understand, because you never have a right in this realm to give away the responsibility the universe gave you. You can never abdicate that. It'll always be yours, even when they're putting chains on you and putting a needle in your arm and you're fighting, or when you're willingly do it. It can never be really given away. You're just ignoring. The word is ignorant. You're ignoring your responsibility. And most people are arrogant in it, right? Oh, it'll just go away. It'll get better. We'll get back to normal. Just do as you're told. Just do this. They're going to start telling me what to do when I had the vision before this ever came that it was going to come and where it's going to go, when they don't even know where it's going to go as they're in it and advocating for it. But again, the blind will be led by the blind. In the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king, right? I understand my sovereignty, quote unquote, and my kingship, and where and who I get it from, or whatever I get it from. I don't even know the thing, but I can be the thing because it works through me, right? Through conscience. It's centered in my conscience, and everyone has conscience. And if they remove their ego and seek the truth will set them free by reuniting them with conscience, right? And a lot of it's common sense when you really just boil it down.
Right? Huge amounts of common sense. And I like how you keep talking about not just knowing what's right, but embodying it, having like calls to action and or being God in action, meaning the cells in us put legs and action to the things and not just being like thinking about it or hoping about it or having a prayer meditation about it. It's like, no, when the choice comes, make the choice. Do the
The
thing. Like,
sacred Trinity, right? That they get the corrupt Trinity, Father, Son. How does it go? Father, Son, Holy Spirit. The true sacred Trinity is thoughts, emotions, and actions. As you think and feel and act, so the world will go, right? And they all align with each other. It's all one sort of like a circuit. As you think, so you will feel. As you think and feel, so you will act. As you think, feel, and act as an individual and collective level, you will manifest the world, right?
Yep.
So that's the sacred understanding of true religion, which is not religion, it's spirituality, because it has no head, it has no leader, it has no doctrine or dogma. It is simply about understanding self, therefore understanding the universe, conducting the self where we commune with the universe, therefore we get a community, right?
Yes. And that's why the Mockingbird project of programming, whether it's sports, music, Hollywood, what have you, the news, if they can get us into the mind frame of getting connected with that programming, that vibration into beta waves, and then we're thinking about it, talking about hearing it, programmed into it, then they're using our creative power to create for them, because they're directing it through this bioweapon of the television and the screen to get everyone into the waveform that they want for us to create it for them. It's like, turn it off or use it for a different way or listen to something else instead of being mesmerized and seducted into the frequency of that, the fear and the chaos and,
The
anyway.
false light, right? They talk about the devices we use now would be, again, the false light, the moth to the flame, right?
Devices.
Sure.
Yes.
And the understanding is in the symbols and the words and the terms, and they put it right on there. Right on the back of the Apple phone is an apple with a bite taken out of it, symbolizing the fall of man in the Garden of Eden. So they know about taking your consciousness from its highest point down to its lowest point and keeping you resonating in those lower vibrations and frequencies. That's how they manifest chaos. That's how they manifest control, is order ab chaos, order out of chaos. By bringing you to those lower frequencies, you're no longer to use higher order thought. Therefore, you're more easily manipulated, right? So it's just one big form of sorcery control. But again, it has to happen because for a truly empowered soul, who's the expression of the most high consciousness in flesh form, you have to be willing and able to not only discern the weapons, but to be able to defend or to be offensive against them, right? You have to know when to do what and how. You cannot sit there and be weak and tell me about being incarnated into a war, but you don't know how to do anything and you won't figure out how. Well, whose fault is that? You've been here for thousands of years. Like, bring me the person. Tell me whose fault it is, other than you, your parents, their parents, their parents, whoever, whatever. It's just continually saying we are the ones that are at fault, because this game has not changed. The names have changed, but the game is the same, right? So we've incarnated here thousands of times in different places on the map and had the same battle over and over again, because the individual and the collective refuses to learn the lessons and to implement them and to keep them, to hold them dear, right? To be principled. They want to continue to live by the seat of their pants and by whatever their feelings and their self tells them right now. Again, what we want, especially when the controllers are all too ready to give them everything they want, just at the expense of selling off their power and their self-control. Just give us your decision-making power and the control. We'll give you everything else. You don't have to think no more. The bell rings, you clock in, you do your task. Just smart enough to operate the machinery, not quite smart enough to make the machinery or to own the company or to figure out how you're getting fucked out of 40% of your money that you're making that you could go buy a company with because you opted into a contract with the government. Again, you signed the W-2 and the W-9. They never forced you to. There's ways to sign it where where it's not applicable to you. But how many people, again, back to true care, how many people care enough? And when I confront my father or other people, and when push gets to shove, I guess the fear is too big, or they don't know what to do, or whatever it is. But they'll tell me, it's not lately, but at a certain point, it was, I don't care, I can't care, I have to survive, I have to make money, I have to do this, this, and this. Well, if we don't truly care about all these other things, we're not going to get these other things. That's going to go away, right? So it's spirit first in the world, not of it, right? We have to stand on these principles, these unseen principles, in order to then live in the seen world, right? The hidden has to be honored before the seen.
Yes. So where would you say, for those just waking up or those who are on, like, what can people do to get to where you are, where you not necessarily making a YouTube channel and like putting it all out there, which I am curious, like, how did that even start? Like, you were just like, hey, let me put this up and I'll be able to teach a few people and what have you. But You are teaching people, you are inspiring people, and I'm just so glad that we found you. But like, what do you tell people who are listening even here today? And this is being recorded, so it will be passed around, shared, and who knows how many people will get it. But what would you do to encourage somebody to connect with themselves and to start? What's their starting point?
Well, obviously, question your beliefs from top to bottom. I guess if I didn't necessarily do this process, but if you wanted me to make a process up off the top of my head, go get a paper and write down what you know to be true, what you can demonstrate to be true, what your life experience has shown you to be true. And if you're really honest with yourself, first of all, you're going to have to care enough to do any of these processes. So once you don't do the process, I already know you're not ready, because the person who really cares is a person usually who's been suffering, right? That's the dynamic of what this all seems to be. Once you're tired of suffering and creating your own suffering, you're going to look for some help somewhere, and you're going to take suggestions and advice. Just like when you go to NA or AA, you have to hit a rock bottom where you created your own suffering for long enough out of ignorance or whatever it is, ego. You have to hit that rock bottom and say, you know what, I'm done creating my own suffering. I'm ready for help and to take suggestions and advice. And you will start that process of seeking truth. And then you will start to look at what resonates, what doesn't. You're going to be wrong sometimes. You're going to get swindled. You're going to get duped. You're going to get misled. But through continuing that process of seeking truth, being honest with yourself when you're wrong, and questioning, right, everything and everyone that you know and believe, and getting to the heart of it. you know I mean, what else could there be as far as a process of really coming to know yourself and the universe, other than putting everything to the test, put everything on trial. And I got to tell you, you're going to start to get annoying in your own life and in other people's lives, because you're going to realize that you live in a world where people are desperately trying to avoid going to trial. I don't care if it's the head of Pfizer. I don't care who it is. Nobody wants to get into a room with the fellow man and woman or themselves and speak in front of the universe and say, this is who and what I am, and this is what I know to be true, and this is what stand on it, stand on the truth. They don't want to do it. You know why? Because the majority of people, when push comes to shove, they don't know who and what they are. They know what they're going to do and the reason why, because of how it feels. So again, you have to come to that place within yourself where you know who and what you are, at least true enough. Doesn't have to be total. It's true enough. True enough is, like I said before, I am that am. The ability for me to move and communicate in this body means whoever and whatever animates this body as a force, this body is my property while I'm here. Nobody outside of that has an ability to tell me what's true and what's real, or what I'm going to do or not do. You have to come to that first. It may seem silly, but and think about it. That's all that we do to our children from day one at home and in school, is to teach them the opposite of that. So when you ask me, well, what's the first step, or how do we get there? That's first step, is realizing your whole training, everything you thought to be true and everything you were trained for, is absolutely the opposite of where this journey is going to take you. And then go to the scripture and look at how they will allude to or tell you directly that everything, man's law, man's groups of uniformed men, costume men, are all uh, um, forsaken. Cannot even control and care for themselves. Right? Physician, heal thyself. Doctors have the highest rates of alcoholism, drug problems, suicides. I went to go see a couple doctors. They were morbidly obese. It's a joke. So now you have a whole society taking cues and listening to people who are supposed to be experts, who have demonstrated they cannot even help themselves, right? So once you uncover these layers, you'll realize that what we have on a mass scale is a lack of self-esteem, a lack of self-worth, a lack of self-knowing, and a lack of self-will.
Will's a big one too. Yeah.
Because you may be awake and know all that, but never act on it. Exactly. And therefore, you're still in the same camp, right?
Yep. Taking action and actually doing something, and having the willpower to do something about what you know is true. Sometimes people don't have the courage or the will to do it, and it's sad. It's frustrating, but if we, as someone who's already gotten there, are trying to force people to do it, then we're not any better than any of the others who are trying to manipulate or control. It's like about being in our own lane, doing what we need to do, and focus on what we, and not try to push and pull and make, but just present. And that's what I like what you're doing. You know, even with the police officers, you're always really respectful. You're like, yes, sir. And, very calm. When you're not freaking out, you're not irate, you're not being belligerent. You're just having conversations and talking and helping people and encouraging people to, ask it. And you're asking questions. You're like, do you know about this? Do you know about that? Well, what do you know about this? Did you know that? It's like, wow. And then getting people's names and, saying, can you get me that officer's name because he's not giving me the information or whatever. You're holding people accountable, and that's really important, like for us to be accountable. And then especially if someone's enforcing the law and they don't know the law, that's kind of scary, isn't it?
Sure. Well, that's the thing too, is that we believe they're enforcing law because we watch cops and we've been told and we experience. However, through further investigation, we understand that they are police policy enforcement. So they are enforcing code, statutes, and policies, all of which are not laws, right? A sheriff would be closer to a lawman than a policeman. And even still, there's, sort of this color of law gray area, right? So again, there has to be a research for the resource, right? We have to get back to source on all levels, source consciousness, source understanding of what law and legal and the difference between those. And then we can come down the sort of the pyramid, like they show on the back of the dollar bill. All this symbolism, there is no mistake why all this stuff is used, because the light has been obfuscated by a stone pyramid. People are no longer able to commune with and receive the light because the Masons, right? I'm not talking about Freemasons. I'm just talking about builders. The word Mason means builder. So the builders of certain systems have erected a stone pyramid in between the light and the, bottom of that pyramid, us. So we have to do the process of taking those stones out one by one, right? And we do that through, again, thoughts, emotions, and actions. We lead ourselves, therefore we lead others. If we show other people, look, I'm taking the blocks out one by one, over here, over there. And now you can start to see and feel the light and the heat and that energy. And it's, you either resonate with it or you don't. It's like people of the sun. Some people in certain states of consciousness, I was there at one point, you don't want the light. You don't want the sun. Duct tape those windows up. I want to be in this darkness for whatever the reason is. Maybe it's preferable to you at that time. Other people, they're the opposite. They want to be out in the sun. They want to receive that light. And then we can sort of conclude one is sort of more functional and healthy and makes sense with the program, and another one is sort of a twisted, sick, dysfunctional state. So again, everything is sort of evident if you're willing to look and realize, and then also too understand you have the power to change. Because someone might say, well, I don't want to really admit to myself how bad it is. Well, once you admit how bad it is, then you can start to change it into how good it's going to be. But then too, you're going to have to sort of a lot of times go through that process. You might have to sit in a bed for 10, 20 years and throw your life away on drugs, until you finally say, you know what, I overdosed 2, 3 times. I'm done with it. I've been to jail. I'm done with all of it. And then something sort of just happens. I don't know how much of that is summoned and created and how much of it is an organic sort of process. And then it sort of works together. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Pain is a good teacher, right?
The best teacher.
And anger. I have a friend, Bob Stevens, and he says that when they're working with patients, if he can get them angry, then he knows then we can get somewhere. Because if people are like tired of being where they're at and angry about what's happening, then they can realize, you know what, it's no more blame. It's taking your authority back and remembering your authority and your own power to be able to make new choices to do something else where you're not going to be on the other end of that anymore.
Sure. And it's not even like, we can sort of get into the sub-psychology. Most anger comes really rooted in fear, because I believe there's 2 base emotions, love and fear. Usually if we're in one, we're not in the other. So anger is just the acceptable expression of something that's we're not acceptable, usually, from what I've seen in myself and other males, especially brought up in certain environments. An unacceptable emotion, there's certain emotions that are unacceptable. Anger is always an acceptable emotion in those households, right? So what am I getting to here? So
you're saying, so fear,
righteous indignation, right? So
Okay.
what we're talking about here is separate from that sort of false strength, projected anger in substitute of an unacceptable emotion. What we're talking about here is a righteous indignation. What's happening is unacceptable and it needs to change. And there is that sort of fire there, or that energy, or that motivation, I guess you can call it. But again, too, there's many levels to this. You have sleep habits, you have diet habits, drugs and alcohol, you have peer groups, you have family. All these things are going to influence your inner space to one degree or the other, especially the attention and power you put on them. Because oftentimes we put more power and attention on the people who do the worst for us, because there's something there, gives us something to feel and something to fight. It gives us a purpose, right? Where there is no purpose. So again, if we can get into true purpose, and then we can act from that energy with true purpose, we don't give power and attention more than what's necessary to those other things in life, right? Because again, they are just sort of things on the side of the road on the journey to where we're getting to. But again, you have to get back to now going from purposeless to true purpose. And
Instead of
then again,
distractions, right? Basically, we just like to keep us occupied so we're not focused on us and what we need to do and what we can do.
sure, but it's a complete reformation of the inner space, because again, we've been brought to believe and led to believe all along we're all different, we're all individual, we're all our own thing. That's true on one aspect. The other aspect, see, it's paradoxical. It's not this or that, it's this and that. We are our own individual free choice and free will. However, we have a collective outcome and a collective consequence and collective free choice that is going to lead to, like I said, the outcome, the manifestation. So you are an individual in a world with other individuals called a collective, where the consciousness and the preponderance is going to lead to an outcome, right? So if X amount do this, then it's going to cause this. If X amount do that, it's going to cause that, right? And it all comes back to, again, law, cause and effect. So we can merge the true spirituality with true science, right? When you're speaking eternal truth, all subjects come together and merge into one, because it's not this or that, it's this and that, right? Science is an explanation and a way of coming to a certain level of understanding of a bigger picture of what consciousness and life is.
Integration, mind, body, spirit, to be integrated, to have integrity, to
Sure.
say what you're going to do it, follow through, to be a person of your word. You say that a lot in your videos. You're like, my man, my word. I said you were a genius on Facebook, and you're like, I'm just a man. It's just like you didn't want any labels. You're just like, I'm just a man. I'm a dude, right? I like
Because
it.
every time we do that, if what goes up must come down. If I become the genius, well, then everyone else can't do what I do. And then at some point, when I make a mistake, the genius is reduced to nothing. So now I'm no longer a leader for them. I don't want to be any of that. I want you to understand I'm a common man. I've honed myself and worked on myself just like you can. And you can do anything that I can do. That's not a humble sort of cliche thing. That is the reality of the situation. I will never let my ego take me to a place where I'm above or better than, other than my choices. I will look at someone and demean them at times, because I will say, I am making better choices. I am choosing to remove my ego. You are clearly choosing to play a game because you think there's no accountability and outcome. So I get frustrated and angry with that. And I say, you know what, you're going to see. I just let them know, you're going to see. You keep thinking you're going to play your game over there because you're over there. Well, over there is also over here. So there is no separation. We are going to suffer together. And I'm okay with that. I love the truth and my fellow man and woman so much. I'm willing to sacrifice as a result of their choices with them, because they want to play the game that they're going to be safe over there and I'm over here. I can see through that illusion. And what better way to show them than by standing on that? If I didn't really believe in what I was saying, I would react. I would do this, I would do that. No, this is what it is. I'm a little frustrated. I'm a little disappointed. But I also see through that illusion that that's part of my flesh. That on the highest level, spirit has no emotion or any attachment to any of this. What is what is, cause and effect.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I hope you guys will share this and tag and get it out there, and go look to I put his YouTube in here too, so you guys can check out some of these things, because it's a lot. There's a lot of different things, and they're very detailed in what he says, and just his whole experiences with different situations, being in different situations. And what are any final words, anything coming up? I know you have like a Zoom coming up, and I know you're on a ton of different interviews, but where can we plug in to like learn more about you, find you, see what you're doing, and then any final words that you would have just to encourage people.
So yeah, pretty much right now I just got a Facebook. It's everything is under, like, if you go to the facebook.com/, I believe it's ITS Paul Unslaved, just like it's in my video box there. Same thing on YouTube, same thing on Telegram. Um, that's pretty much it right now at this point. I'll probably be doing more going forward, but yeah, right now.
Well, dude, I hope you will come back. And I'm going to be out of town next week, but maybe we can get together in the future and do a follow up and maybe Q&A or do something where people can be interactive and talk to you a little bit. If you're up for it, we'd love to have you back.
Sure, I'm open to anything. I don't really have any, you know, aversions to anything. If that's, if people want to question and answer, we can do that. I'm here.
Awesome. All right, sir. Well, I know you're a busy man and you have another thing scheduled here. So I appreciate your time so much, more than you
Sure.
would ever know. I'll probably go back and listen to this 2 or 3 times just because of my own personal situations. But thank you so much. And thank you for what you're doing, not just for us here today, but just as a collective. Like if everyone could just do their role of their version of this, can you even imagine like where we would be? It would be it would be awesome. And I envision that, I imagine that, I look forward to that, I outcome that, and I hope for that, I believe for that. I'm not giving up on humanity. I'm really believing that we got a shot here, and I am encouraged when I see people like you, and I think it brings a lot of other people courage to be encouraged within to do and make the choices that we already could have been making this whole time. And it's just maybe people weren't aware, like you said, ignorance, to ignore. I like how you did that too. I'm a word sleuth. I like all that conscious talk. But thank you so much. And you guys definitely check him out. And we appreciate you so much. And we'll talk soon.
Sure, I appreciate you, Sharnael, and we definitely talk again.
All right, sir. Take care. Thank you.
See you later.
Bye.